Hello there, and welcome to the story of an hour. Excuse the scruffiness. I've been without power for several days. So, if you take a moment to dig out your textbook and take a look at this short story. A couple things I want to point out in terms of how we analyze this particular piece, and just the little bit that we need to analyze in order to do a decent job of oral interpretation. Okay, we're not writing a literary essay here, but the things we need to do for a performance are a little different than what we would do in a literary essay. All right, starting with the first sentence, which is a very good place to start. Knowing that Mrs. Mallard was afflicted with a great heart trouble. Okay, great care was taken to break to her as gently as possible the news of her husband's death. This is clearly foreshadowing, right? While this story may be sort of old timey, even so, to have a very short story where a woman suddenly just drops dead at the end from shock is a little cornball. So if we just suggest right off the top, by the way, she's got a bad heart, she might kick off any second. So when she does kick off in a few seconds, it sort of flows and fits. So she hears that her husband has been killed. This is basic exposition. She's very upset. She weeps at once, and she goes up to her room. Pretty much standard exposition and what we would expect a person to do. And then the weird thing happens that I mentioned in the PowerPoint, relates to the individuality of this rather odd situation. While she's in her room, facing her open window, we get to the paragraph. She could see the open square before her house, through the open square, meaning the window. The tops of trees that were all a quiver with new spring life. The delicious breath of rain was in the air. In the street below, a peddler crying. There are sparrows twittering. Okay, all this lovely descriptive moments, which could sound kind of corny. If we're going to do this piece, we don't want them to sound corny. Just imagine that if you're just noticing, as many of us ought to do, stop for a second and just notice what's going on around you. And you do notice these different little things. And so she's seeing this whole world fluttering and twittering and quivering outside, okay? And some of that's getting a little bit sexual, okay, sounding maybe. It might be worth your while for this piece to just sit by yourself somewhere, eyes closed, and just imagine yourself going through the process that occurs over the next several paragraphs. What would it be like if I were suddenly having this experience? And then you can remember the memory you just made up as you're performing. Anyway, we get patches of blue sky. We talk about the fact that she was young, that something's happening, and then we get started, all right? There was something coming for her, and she was waiting for it, fearfully. What was it? She did not know. Now her bosom rose and fell tumultuously. She was beginning to realize this thing that was approaching to possess her, and she was striving to beat it back with her will, as powerless as her two white, slender hands would have been. Okay, now we're getting to 50 Shades of Grey, right? Can be pretty corny. And it gets even worse in just a moment when you've got to repeat the same corny word 3 times in a row. If all you can do is think of this as corny, you might want to pick a different piece, okay? Because in this story, this is a serious moment. This is really happening to her. She's suddenly having this epiphany, this overwhelming awareness that floods over her, and you're going to have to commit to each of these things. Really go for the wishing you could beat it back. She abandoned herself as a little whispered word escaped her lips. She said it over and over under her breath. Free, free, free. Oh, wow. We're going to talk about this a bit more in some of the paragraphs, some of the passages that we're going to do. The repeated word thing. It seems so corny. It seems so artificial. And yet you know that we all do it. How many times have you heard someone say, no, 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 no? Those were like 7 no's in a row. Or someone will repeat themselves by saying, would you do this for me, please? Please? Ooh, what does that second please mean? The first one is please do it for me. The second one is I really mean it, I'm not sure if you're going to follow through. That's what the second please means. So when you've got repeated words like this, for them to not be corny, each of them needs to mean something different. It might be that the first free is realizing I'm free. and then saying to myself, free? What does that mean? And then saying, free, and I'm the king of the world or whatever. Maybe not that corny, but if each individual thing is its own particular meaning, you can do three in a row and they'll sound perfectly normal. Okay? We keep talking through here that she is whispering these things. She is recognizing something that seems pretty untoward at the moment. Your husband just died, and almost the first thing you can think about is that you're now free. That does seem a little inappropriate. So a lot of times she might get to a free and then realize we've got to whisper. Okay? The word whisper pops in and out here. The next couple paragraphs talk about being in love with her husband, but now having the option of being free. So as we go back and forth, our voice might need to do that. So we have the free moments and oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm saying this. Okay? In fact, we get down almost to the end. The free, body and soul free, she kept whispering. Now, you might decide to whisper that since that's what the text says. We also have exclamation points, so maybe it's a loud whisper. It's clearly loud enough that Josephine comes up to the door and says, "Are you okay?" All right? Because you don't want to be the person who's just become a widow sitting upstairs going, "Ha ha ha, I'm free, I'm free." All right? They're really going to take you away. But she is loving this possibility. So she rises at length and goes downstairs. And now here's the kicker. There's her husband. He's alive. Okay? He had been far from the scene of the accident. We don't need to hear every this is, I would suggest, zipping through this. Someone is opening the front door with a latchkey. Do we care if we hear the word latchkey? Does this matter in any way to the rest of... Normally, the last word in a sentence, important. In this case, who cares? It was Brentley Mallard who entered, a little travel stain, composedly carrying his grip sack and umbrella. All right, if we don't catch the fact that he's got an umbrella or whatever, none of that really matters. We can just sort of blast through. He had been far from the scene of the accident, did not even know that there had been one. He stood amazed at the piercing cry. Okay? That's where we want to hear specifically, once again. Oh my God, I walk in, bam, my wife screams. Somebody tries to jump in front, but it's too late, and she's dead. The last sentence, I want to mention something about pauses. When the doctors came, they said she had died of heart disease, of joy that kills. You notice I paused. A little dash there usually means a pause. A word about pauses. They seem 3 times as long to you as they do to your audience. All right? We need a little break right there. Because the doctors came, doctor's heart disease, right? We are going to take a second in our minds to go back to the first sentence and say, right. She has heart disease. She has a bad heart. So we need a second to remember, oh right, that's why this happened. And then we get the kicker, the sort of Twilight Zone zinger at the end of joy that kills. We don't want to lose those last 4 words. So give us a second to catch the heart disease part, and then give us the kicker. Oh, and by the way, I'll mention this a million times. Have an ending, okay? Because heart disease of joy that kills. So that's kind of my speech. Okay. It's a terrible way to end. If you got nothing else for an ending, just hit that last sentence, stop, pause. That cues us that you're done. Say, thank you. Then we know you're done, and we can applaud. All right? Please don't vaguely wander off into the ether at the end of a piece. If all you've got is thank you, just say thank you.